I always believed I had a good grasp on motherhood. I raised my son, Ethan, on my own after his father walked out when Ethan was barely 3 years old. I worked hard, juggled 2 jobs for years, and made sure my boy had everything he needed. He was my world, my reason to keep going. As he grew older, I kept telling myself that I was doing the right thing, even when I was exhausted or emotionally drained. He never asked for much, and he was never one of those rebellious kids who gave their single mom a hard time. In fact, he was incredibly thoughtful, respectful, and unusually mature for his age. That's why, when he came to me that Friday afternoon with a serious look in his eyes and said, "Mom, can I talk to you about something important?" I listened. It was just the 2 of us in the house. The weather outside was humid, thunder rumbling in the distance. I was standing at the kitchen counter slicing cucumbers for dinner when he said it. I looked over at him, towel over my shoulder, knife in hand. He was 16, but his shoulders were already broader than most boys his age, his eyes serious and focused. Something about the way he spoke made me stop what I was doing immediately. "Sure, honey," I said, drying my hands and walking toward the living room where he had already sat down. I joined him on the couch, and he looked at me like he was trying to read my reaction before even speaking. "There's someone I want you to meet," he said slowly. "And I know it's going to sound weird at first, but I need you to trust me." I blinked. "Someone? Like a girlfriend?" He chuckled nervously, shaking his head. "Not exactly. I mean, yeah, sort of. But it's not what you think." I waited patiently, sensing this was difficult for him to explain. "It's Mr. Jacobs," he said. The name meant nothing to me at first. "Who?" "My English teacher. Well, technically he was my teacher last semester, but now, we talk. After school. He's been helping me with some personal stuff." I immediately sat straighter, a flare of worry rising in my chest. "Wait. You've been seeing your teacher outside of school?" "Mom, relax," Ethan said quickly, sensing my alarm. "Nothing weird, I promise. He's like a mentor, you know? I've been going through some things in my head, and I didn't want to bother you, because you're always working and doing everything for us." My heart softened a little at his words, but my mind still buzzed with concern. I'd heard too many stories. But I listened. "He's got this group," Ethan continued. "It's for teenagers who need a space to talk. Not therapy exactly, more like discussions. He used to do it for kids in his neighborhood before he moved here. I went one day after school and it really helped." I took a breath, still unsure. "Okay, and what do you need from me?" He looked directly at me. He's invited some of the parents. It's like a weekend retreat. Just one night. Nothing fancy. He says it helps if the parents can see what it's all about. "I want you to come. Please." I hesitated. A retreat. With strangers. I barely had time to breathe between shifts at the diner and bookkeeping at night. But the way Ethan looked at me in that moment, so earnest, so vulnerable, I couldn't say no. Not to him. I never could. "All right," I said finally. "I'll come." The following Saturday, we drove an hour out to a small, modest retreat center nestled in the woods near a lake. It wasn't fancy, just a few cabins and a main hall. Ethan was clearly excited, introducing me to a few of the other teens and adults. Everyone seemed friendly enough, but I remained cautious. Mr. Jacobs, Greg Jacobs, was a tall, kind-looking man in his early 40s with a warm voice and a calming presence. He greeted me with a handshake and thanked me for coming. He explained the format: discussion circles, shared meals, simple outdoor activities. The goal, he said, was connection. That evening, after a light dinner, we gathered around a fire pit. There were about 15 of us, 8 teens, the rest parents. Mr. Jacobs asked everyone to share something they'd never told their child or parent. My heart beat fast. I didn't want to participate, but Ethan gave me a look, gentle encouragement, and I knew I had to try. When it was my turn, I hesitated, my hands clenched tightly in my lap. I guess. I never told Ethan how scared I was the night his father left. I put on a brave face, but I was terrified. I didn't know how I'd pay the bills. How I'd raise a child on my own. I cried in the shower every night for weeks. The circle was silent. Ethan looked at me, stunned. Then he reached for my hand. "Mom," he whispered. "I didn't know." I nodded. "I know. I didn't want you to." That moment cracked something open. Not just for me, but for us. The rest of the weekend was filled with similar moments, tears, laughter, quiet understanding. It was emotionally exhausting but strangely healing. I started seeing Ethan not just as my son, but as a young man with his own inner world. He talked about his fears too, about failing me, about not being good enough. I had no idea he carried those thoughts. When we returned home Sunday night, everything felt different. Lighter. More open. Over the next few weeks, our conversations deepened. We didn't just talk about chores or grades anymore. We talked about life, emotions, regrets. I learned that Ethan had secretly applied for a creative writing summer program and gotten accepted. He hadn't told me because he thought I'd say no, that we couldn't afford it. He was right, but I applied for a small grant and got him in. One night, while we were doing dishes together, he said, "You know, I used to think I had to take care of you." I looked at him. "What do you mean?" "Like, emotionally. I didn't want to upset you. I kept everything inside because I thought it was my job to make your life easier. You already had so much on your plate." I blinked back tears. "Ethan, that's not your job. It never was." "I know. Now I know." That weekend helped me see it. Helped me understand that being strong doesn't mean being silent. He was right. And I realized I had done the same thing, bottling everything up, pretending I was fine because I thought that was what good moms did. But good parenting wasn't about pretending. It was about honesty, connection, vulnerability. That summer changed everything. Ethan flourished in the writing program. He came back with stories, confidence, new friends from all over the country. He submitted a short story to a national contest and won third place. I watched him stand on stage at the award ceremony, accepting his certificate, and I felt something inside me shift. Later that night, in the hotel room, he looked over at me and said, "Thanks for believing in me." "I always believed in you," I said. "Yeah, but now I believe in me, too." We both laughed, and then cried, and then laughed again. A year passed, and Ethan graduated high school with honors. He got a partial scholarship to a liberal arts college out of state. Saying goodbye at the airport was one of the hardest moments of my life, but I didn't cry until he was out of sight. Not because I was hiding my feelings, but because I wanted him to have the strength to start his new chapter without carrying my sadness. We talked often, and every now and then he'd remind me about that weekend retreat. He'd say, "That's when everything changed.